In 50 years of broadcast journalism, Diane Sawyer had done it all. She had sat with presidents in the aftermath of scandal, with families torn apart by unspeakable tragedy, with celebrities at the absolute peak of their fame. But in all those decades, through thousands of hours of tape and tens of thousands of questions, she had never once terminated an interview before it was complete. Not once. Until the day she sat across from Meghan Markle. What was supposed to be an intimate portrait of a duchess finding her voice turned into something else entirely. A dismantling. A quiet explosion. An hour that proved no matter how skilled the interviewer, you cannot extract truth from a person who has sealed themselves off from it entirely. And when the legendary journalist finally uttered the words she had never spoken before, the silence that followed was deafening. The location had been chosen with the precision of a film set. A neutral living room in Los Angeles, staged to feel warm without belonging to anyone. No harsh studio lights. No studio audience. Just two chairs facing each other, soft lamps casting golden shadows, and the kind of manufactured intimacy designed to make truth feel safe. Diane Sawyer had requested this format herself. She believed that when the cameras and the crew faded into the background, people forgot they were being watched. They leaned in. They confessed. The recording started softly. The hum of the cameras filled the room. Diane leaned forward, her voice carrying that signature warmth that had made hardened criminals and traumatized survivors weep in her presence. "Let's start with something simple," she offered. "What brings you genuine joy right now? Not purpose, not meaning. Simple joy." Meghan smiled. It was a perfect smile, technically flawless, camera-ready. She spoke of her children, her family, the act of building something meaningful. But Diane had been doing this for half a century. She could spot a talking point from a mile away. "What specifically about your children?" She pressed gently. "A moment from this week that made you laugh." And then it happened. The first crack in the facade. A pause. Brief, almost imperceptible, but Diane felt it like a tremor. Meghan spoke of curiosity and energy, vague descriptors, empty vessels. Diane pushed further, asking for a concrete memory. What did Archie say? What did Lily do? But the details wouldn't come. The Duchess shifted in her seat, her composure flickering like a dying bulb. "I prefer to protect specific moments," she said. The room grew quieter. Diane didn't blink. She noted the deflection, filed it away, and moved on. But the question lingered in the air like smoke. A mother who couldn't recall a single specific laugh from her children just days before. It was the first sign that something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. The Geneva trip came next. Diane pivoted smoothly, asking about the lost screen memorial and the controversial photo with the Finnish politician, Willie Reedman, a man with a documented history of racism and inappropriate behavior. And yet, there was Meghan, posing beside him, her advocacy built on the very issues he stood against. "How did that happen?" Diane asked, her tone still measured. Meghan deflected. "Large events have many attendees." She claimed she couldn't research everyone who approaches her. But Diane countered with surgical precision. "When your image is your message, endorsement requires vetting." "A mistake," Meghan insisted. But Diane held the thread. "Your team never corrected it. No statement, no acknowledgement. Silence wasn't accountability. It was avoidance." Then came the Instagram post. The photograph of Lily in the wardrobe, posted just hours before Meghan's speech warning parents about the dangers of exposing children online. Diane laid the contradiction bare. "You flew to Geneva to warn others about digital exposure. Hours earlier, you exposed your own child. How does that resolve?" Meghan defended the moment as sharing joy. But Diane's question was devastating. Who determines the harm? If you missed this obvious irony, what else are you missing? The warmth in the room had evaporated. Meghan's smile had hardened into a grimace. She reached for her water, but her hand trembled. The cameras caught every micro-expression. You could hear the tension crack through the air. Diane moved to the foundation. The Archwell Foundation. Years of operation, millions in funding, and yet when asked for a signature accomplishment, Meghan could only offer partnerships and awareness. Diane pressed. What law changed? What policy? What measurable impact? The answers were hollow. "We focus on cultural shift rather than quantifiable metrics," Meghan said. Diane's response cut like a blade. "That's not an approach. That's an excuse for lack of results." She explained that effective organizations can always point to specifics. Numbers of people helped, communities transformed. When someone claims their impact is immeasurable, it usually means there's nothing to measure. The interview was slipping. Diane could feel it. The subject was shrinking back into her armor. So she changed tact, going for the heart. "How's Harry?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Meghan's face went pale, then flushed. She described him as wonderful. But Diane wasn't looking for adjectives. She wanted texture, emotion. "What makes your heart race?" she asked. "What still surprises you about him after 8 years?" Meghan spoke of purpose, shared goals. Diane leaned in and delivered a line that would echo through the industry. "That sounds like a business arrangement." Meghan bristled. She refused to perform her marriage for entertainment. But Diane wasn't asking for a performance. She was asking for a glimpse of something genuine. "Every happily married person I've ever interviewed could give me that glimpse effortlessly," Diane said. "The struggle suggests something." The rumors came next. Separate schedules, solo appearances, going to Geneva alone, Australia solo. Diane asked about the reality, and Meghan listed her priorities: family, work, each other. Diane noticed the order immediately. Each other came last, she observed. Was that intentional? Meghan's composure cracked. Her face was red. She accused Diane of parsing words. Diane calmly replied that parsing is what journalists do. Then Diane pivoted to the father, Thomas Markle. The estrangement was public, monetized in interviews and documentaries. Diane's question was simple but devastating. What would reconciliation require from your side? Not what he'd need to do. What internal work would you need to do? Meghan spoke of betrayal. Diane pressed further. At what point does repeated discussion of betrayal become its own form of exploitation? Meghan grabbed her purse. She threatened to leave. But Diane didn't stop. The staff departures came next. The revolving door of communications directors, assistants, and aides. Anonymous reports of difficult conditions. Diane laid out the evidence. Multiple outlets. Consistent descriptions. The consistency suggests truth, not coordination, she said. Meghan's eyes darted around the room. She was cornered, and she knew it. Diane leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper. She asked a question she had only asked herself a handful of times in 50 years. When the person across from me won't engage genuinely, won't give me anything real, I wonder if they can't or won't. Which is it for you? Meghan stared back, her mask finally slipping entirely. She claimed she was being thoughtful. Diane corrected her. You're being controlled. Every word calibrated. Every answer designed to reveal nothing while appearing to reveal something. And then came the hammer. Diane stood up, not to accommodate a break, to end it. I think we're finished, she said. Meghan froze. You can't just end it. I can, Diane replied. This is my production, my name on the special, and I won't attach my name to footage of someone refusing to participate in their own interview while appearing to participate. I've learned nothing about you today, nothing real. Just talking points and deflections. Meghan's face contorted. The mask had crumbled, replaced by raw, defensive anger. She accused Diane of failing to be sympathetic. Diane shook her head. I'm supposed to be honest, she said. Sometimes honest means acknowledging when a subject isn't providing material worth broadcasting. She gathered her notes with deliberate calm. 20 minutes of nothing. I won't waste an hour building more nothing around it. Meghan warned that this would make Diane look bad. Diane replied with icy certainty. This will make me look like someone with standards. My reputation will survive. Will yours survive another story about walking away from accountability? But Diane wasn't finished. She delivered the final, devastating blow, the thesis of the entire encounter. I've interviewed people in the worst moments of their lives. Families who've lost children, survivors of unspeakable trauma. Almost all of them could give me something genuine, something human. You couldn't give me a specific memory of your children laughing. Couldn't describe what your marriage actually feels like. In 50 years, I've rarely encountered someone so defended against basic human connection. Meghan shot back. I'm protecting myself. Diane's reply was the quietest, most cutting moment of all. You're imprisoning yourself. There's a difference. Protection keeps threats out while letting support in. What you've built keeps everything out. Even kindness. Even genuine curiosity. Even someone who came here hoping to understand you. Meghan moved toward the door, then turned back for one final, bitter retort. You've joined everyone who's tried to tear me down. Diane looked at her with something close to pity. I've asked about your children, your marriage, your work, and your family. The gentlest possible topics. If those feel like tearing down, examine what you're defending. What you show is someone who's lost access to their own interior life. Someone who's performed authenticity so long that authenticity is no longer available. The door closed behind Meghan with a soft, definitive click. Diane Sawyer stood alone in the silent room. The cameras continued to hum, but the air was hollow. She turned to her producer and spoke words that would echo through the halls of ABC. We can't air any of this. Nothing. It would destroy her, and not in a way that serves any purpose. She ordered the footage buried. Some failures don't need documentation, she said. And when asked what to tell the network, she replied simply that the interview didn't produce usable material. That happens sometimes. The interview was never broadcast, but the story couldn't stay contained. Word spread through media circles like wildfire. The whispers grew louder. Diane had ended it early. Meghan had refused to engage. Something had happened, something neither side would discuss publicly. Months later, Diane addressed it obliquely during a media appearance. She spoke of moments when you sit across from someone and realize there's no interview to conduct. Not because they are hostile or unprepared, but because they have built such thorough defenses that nothing genuine can emerge. I've spent 50 years making space for truth, she said. Most people given that space will fill it with something real. Occasionally, someone fills it with nothing at all, not because they have nothing, but because they've lost access to what they have. Those are the saddest interviews. Not the confrontational ones. The empty ones. The interviewer pressed her for a specific example. Diane smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. None I'll name, she said. Privacy matters, even for people who sacrifice their own. For Diane Sawyer, the encounter became a quiet lesson in the limits of even the most skilled journalism. Some defenses could not be penetrated. Some souls could not be reached. For Meghan Markle, it was a private failure that never became a public catastrophe. An hour that proved, in the silence of a staged living room, that the accessibility she performed had become a substitute for accessibility itself. But for those who heard the whispers, the industry insiders, the colleagues, the producers who pieced together the fragments, a different picture emerged. A woman who'd come to a legendary interviewer and provided nothing, who'd faced 50 years of expertise and been found wanting, who'd been offered every possible space for truth and filled it with nothing at all. Some people open when given space. Others discover they've forgotten how. The difference becomes visible eventually. All it takes is someone skilled enough to notice. In the end, the lost interview became a ghost in the machine of fame. A reminder that the camera doesn't just capture what we show, it captures what we can't hide. And sometimes, the most devastating exposure isn't a scandal or a leak. It's simply sitting across from someone who asks the right questions and realizing that the silence is all you have left. This is where the real insights live. More depth, more honesty, more of what everyone else won't show. If you want content that recognizes the difference between performance and truth, stay with us. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join a community that values what lies beneath the surface. Because in a world of curated images and calculated narratives, the most radical act is simply being real. And sometimes, the most telling interview is the one that never airs.